All right, so this weekend we have Canelo Alvarez versus Edgar Berlanga. This fight will, of course, be shown live on Dazn pay-per-view. Have a look there on screen. Link to that will be in the description. 7-day free trial, T&Cs applies, of course, but link is in the description nonetheless. Have a look there on screen. Let's talk about this fight. Let's break this fight down. Let's try and dissect Canelo versus Edgar Berlanga. Now, this is Mexico versus Puerto Rico, which normally does, get a lot of fanfare. It gets people watching, gets people interested, and it's a Canelo Alvarez fight, so obviously there will be an amount of interest, certainly in America, on it. This fight. Canelo, since he lost to Dimitri Bivol, some people have argued that maybe Canelo, it's not even that he's starting to show signs of decline. And listen, Canelo Alvarez is now 34 years old. He's been boxing. Next year it'll be 2 decades. So, he's spent long. He's been boxing longer than he's been alive. He's been pro at 15. So this guy, it's been his whole life. And do I think he's in his athletic peak? No. But do I think he's necessarily slowed down to a dramatic effect? No, he's still arguably the best in the division at 168 pounds. Some people have theorized that maybe it's not even that Canelo was actually slowing down. He's just not putting in the effort since that loss to Dimitri Bivol. I think Turki Al-Ashik even hinted at that. That Canelo, when he fought Triple G, he knew, and obviously that fight was contractually obliged, regardless of the result of Dimitri Bivol. But yeah, he went through the motions and won that fight. He obviously fought John Ryder, and I think John Ryder, he could have stopped him, but he didn't. He just kind of went through the motions, kept a lot of energy in reserve and did what he needed to do. He obviously fought Charlo, similar thing. I think he potentially could have actually stopped Charlo, but just chose, Charlo wasn't fighting, so he was like, okay, look, we'll go the distance. And a similar situation with Jaime Munguia. Canelo dropped Munguia very heavily. I think it was round 4 with the uppercut. I thought, okay, Canelo might be able to get rid of him. Canelo still has very good punching power, but it just seems like he's not willing to, he's happy to kind of just go the distance, conserve energy, and not risk, gassing out or anything like that. He's picking quality over quantity, which is something that he's always done. Against Berlanga, I really do think we're going to see his first stoppage since Calaplant, because Berlanga I've known of for years now. I think 2020, 2019 we started hearing about him. That was when he was with Top Rank. And when he was with Top Rank, I have his box rec opened here, he was able to amass a record of 16-0 with 16 knockouts, all of which came in the first round. Come April 2021, he fought Demond Nicholson, and in this fight, he went the distance. Now, he did drop Nicholson a couple of times en route to that, but this was the first time he went the distance. And after that, it took until February this year for him to get a stoppage win again. Now, that fight there was a step up. And, Nicholson is not a stellar opponent by no stretch of the imagination, but he was a step up from what he had been fighting and knocking out in a round with relative ease. We saw a few flaws there. Then he fought on the undercard of Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 against Marcelo Correces. I think I say this name. Now, this is a guy who really campaigned at the start of his career at middleweight. Fought Billy Joe Saunders, gave a good account of himself, but was ultimately stopped by Billy Joe Saunders, who was not a puncher, not even at 160, and this was at 168. So you kind of thought, okay, how good can this guy take a shot? Well, pretty well, because he was beaten Berlanga. He actually dropped Edgar Berlanga, which is a real worry. And a lot of people felt that he did enough to win that fight. Steve Rolls, again, distance fight, not a particularly amazing performance. Arguello, again, distance fight. When he went in there with Jay Quigley last year, I thought to myself, okay, that's going to be a knockout win. Jay Quigley, I've seen him quit against Torrio Johnson. I've seen him get absolutely starched against Demetrius Andrade. He should win this fight easy enough, and it should be a knockout win. Well, he dropped Jay Quigley a couple of times, but it was not an easy fight. And again, it's more like, sheesh. Jay Quigley, you got to bear in mind, was a 160 pounder moving up to 168. Berlanga's a big 168 pounder. And I'm thinking, god damn, fights Patrick McCroy, and he gets a stoppage win in February. But I thought to myself, okay, he is not remotely ready for Canelo Alvarez. Not remotely ready, but here we are. I know he's been targeting this fight, and he's been, looking at Canelo like, certain fighters in the past have looked at other fighters and thought, this is who I want, this is the guy I want, this is what's happening, this is my moment. He can think that all he wants, but I've seen such little from Berlanga, not much in the way of defense. Decent puncher, yes, but very easy to hit. Can't really seem to make any adjustments. This guy went, as I said, 16-0 with 16 knockouts on in the first round. As soon as he started fighting opponents who, gave him a little bit of something to think about, not even that he was losing rounds, it's just that he couldn't, what do I do? I can't adjust. All I know is maraud forward, let big shots go, and they fall down. Now they're not falling down, they're moving, and what do I do? And this is against guys like, no disrespect, Steve Rolls. You're in there against Canelo. And Canelo Alvarez is someone where you give him nothing to really think about, or a massive target, and just come at him. Canelo Alvarez will absolutely have a field day with you. He will have a field day. He will not be able to miss. Uppercuts, right hands, body shots, combinations. Canelo Alvarez is going to light Edgar Berlanga up like a flipping Christmas tree on fight. He really is. If Canelo in this fight goes the distance, maybe not if he goes the distance, but if he goes the distance and this fight is somewhat competitive, like let's say Canelo wins 8 rounds to 4, then I'd be worried. Then I'd be looking at Canelo and thinking, oh boy, what's going on here? Maybe he has really regressed as a fighter, because I think Canelo Alvarez should be beating Edgar Berlanga with one hand tied behind his back. That's how big the gap is. Now, Berlanga is a big 168 pounder. He's probably bigger than Canelo. He's definitely the taller of the two. But he's shown nothing in his career that would make me believe that this fight is going to be an upset. And this would be, for me, this would be a big upset. Like a big upset if he was to actually go in there and beat Canelo Alvarez. I just can't see it. And you could say, well, he's got a puncher's chance. He is a big puncher. Well, Canelo Alvarez has a very good chin. I think we can all see that. He's been in there with the likes of Triple G, Danny Jacobs, Sergey Kovalev, etc. They've not been able to put a dent in him. Canelo Alvarez has been able to take those shots. And Canelo Alvarez at 168, you got to bear in mind, Canelo Alvarez at 168 is a big puncher. He's a big puncher in general, but at 168, the power seems very real. Berlanga's been dropped by lesser punchers. Much lesser punchers than Canelo Alvarez. He's very easy. I cannot see how this fight goes any other way than the Canelo stoppage. The question for me is, how much punishment can Berlanga withstand before eventually succumbing to it? I suspect we are looking at a mid-round stoppage. And I do worry if Canelo hasn't got rid of Berlanga by the mid-rounds, would he just settle for a distance fight? I don't think he should. I think he should really go and try and make a point like, I'm still here. I'm still a force to be reckoned with. I am still the man at 168 pounds. And for me, I would say that Berlanga, if Canelo goes in there and does a big demolition job on him, then it'd be interesting to see what he does next. Would he look and think to himself, what, I've got my little bit of confidence back, I've got my fire back, and, maybe I will target the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol. Maybe I will actually say, what, I have a title at 168, let's fight Dave Benavidez. Let him come down, let's do this Benavidez fight. Because that's the fight I really want to see for Canelo. I really, truly want to see the Benavidez fight for Canelo Alvarez. I think it's a great fight. This, on the other hand, I think this is going to be, again, I mean no disrespect to Berlanga, but I think this is going to be target practice for Canelo Alvarez. I really do. I think that Berlanga, when I look at guys in that division like, Pacheco, who people are saying, he needs a bit more development. Listen, Pacheco is a much better shout than Berlanga. I wouldn't pick him over Canelo, but I would look at that fight with intrigue. I would look at it and say, okay, Pacheco is useful and he can cause Canelo problems, and I'll be interested to see how Canelo handles him. Don't see that with this fight. I see this as a fairly run-of-the-mill routine win for Canelo Alvarez. He's going to light Edgar Berlanga up. the only hope is that Berlanga, and again, like, you know, he's not sneaky with his power. He doesn't disguise anything. He doesn't really adjust. He's not able to switch up the game plan or anything like that. It's just maraud forward, use your power, use your strength, hope you can get rid of these guys, and, you know, if you start hitting them and they start getting hurt, you know, just follow up. That's all it seems to be. I mean, this is a guy at the end of the day, he was losing around to Jay Quigley. At the distance, Demetrius Andre, who was not a noted puncher, well, he's a decent puncher, but he's not a, you know, you don't think of him as, you know, one of the main guys. No trouble. Jay Quigley, 2 rounds. Torrio Johnson, that was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Torrio Johnson, didn't he fight? He fought Jaime Munguia. I think Munguia had no problem with him. Torrio Johnson is ancient. Like, he's ancient now. He was still ancient 5 years ago. And Jay Quigley took a beating off him. A beating. I think he might have even been trained by Dominic Ingle for that fight, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is the guy Berlanga went rounds with and lost rounds to? No. He is not beating Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion. He's not even going to have much of a chance in this fight. If he wins a handful of rounds, I'd be more worried about Canelo than I will be anything else. I know this has been a lot of knocking Berlanga, but from what I've seen, and I've never rated him, and I like big punchers, I do. But I remember seeing him in 2020 and being like, all right, he can punch a bit, but like, and so can Deontay Wilder. But you look at him and you're not gonna look at him and think, you know, oh wow, he's got layers to his game that we didn't know. You don't. Wilder was a one-trick pony. Berlanga is more a just a come forward, use my size, power, everything. Canelo won't be able to miss him on fight night, and I think we are going to see Canelo mid-round stoppage. I'm going to say between rounds 5 to 8. We're going to see Canelo close the show. It might be an accumulation. It might be a corner retirement. I don't think it'll be a clean knockout, but I can see the referee or corner or someone just saying, that's it. Enough's enough. That's really, there's not much to say about this fight. That is my pick. Canelo Alvarez to win this fight by stoppage. First stoppage since Caleb Plant. And yeah, I think it's going to be a beating. Canelo's going to put a beating on this guy. That's what I think. The question is how much game and how much heart does Berlanga have? Because I just don't see him having a prayer in this fight. I really don't. I really truly don't. And I guess you could say it might give us a gauge of what Canelo has, you know, if he is struggling or losing rounds or, you know, going the distance in a bit of a competitive fight, then you really got to ask questions. You really got to look at Canelo and say, how long do we have? How many years? I'd be surprised. You know, we talk about Fury, Usyk, Joshua being in the twilight of their career. I'd be surprised if Canelo Alvarez is in boxing come 2026. I'd be surprised. I would say we're maybe into the twilight of Canelo Alvarez as a fighter, because he's in his mid-30s now. He's got to be slowing down. And what more does he have? Light heavyweight champion, undisputed super middleweight champion, 154 light middleweight champion. What is, his resume is stacked. What more does he need? You know, so I would imagine Canelo Alvarez, and maybe the way he's been handling his career over the last couple of years is indication to that maybe he's kind of like 1 foot out the door. Maybe. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't need the Saudis. He really doesn't. He makes enough money as is. He wants to look at the Saudis and think, you know what, I don't need that. And he's done that. I wouldn't be shocked if he wins this fight and we see Turkey, you know, reignite those talks with Crawford. I don't really like that fight, but that's probably the only thing I can see really happening next. I can't envision Canelo not winning this fight. So that's my pick, Canelo mid-rounds. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, as always, people, if you haven't already. And lads, I'll leave it there. Peace.